The other night, at a rally in Florida, Trump suggested that there had been a terrorist attack in Sweden, quote, last night, end quote.
You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible.
This came as a great shock to the people of Sweden because they had no idea what the fuck he was talking about. The last terrorist attack in Sweden was in 2010 when an Iraqi-born Swede carried out a bomb attack that injured 2 people and killed the bomber. Trump later claimed he was talking about a report on Fox TV featuring clips from Ami Horowitz's, quote, documentary, unquote, that indicated a growing crime rate since Sweden started taking in refugees. The problem, of course, is that according to Reuters, Sweden's crime rate has been steadily dropping since 2005. Because it's fucking Sweden. At this point, they're trying to reduce racist attacks and hate crimes, which seem to be targeted based on brown skin, practicing Islam, and sexual orientation. A while back, Propaganda Minister Conway referenced the, quote, Bowling Green Massacre, end quote, as evidence of the need for Trump's Muslim ban.
I bet there was very little coverage. I bet it's brand new information to people that President Obama had a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program after 2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green Massacre. I mean, most people don't know that because it didn't get covered.
As you know, the Bowling Green Massacre didn't get coverage because there was no such massacre. Minister Conway was talking about a pair of Iraqi immigrants who were arrested in Kentucky trying to send money and guns back to Iraq. One is serving a life sentence, the other something like 40 years. Neither appears to have returned to Iraq since arriving in the U.S., nor had actual contact with anyone in ISIL, and neither was charged with plotting an attack in the U.S. Shortly after that, Sean Spicer referred to an attack in Atlanta.
What do we say to the family that loses somebody of a terrorist, to whether it's Atlanta or San Bernardino or the Boston bomber? Too many of these cases that have happened, whether you're talking about San Bernardino, Atlanta.
But I don't think you have to look any farther than the families of the Boston Marathon, in Atlanta, in San Bernardino, to ask if we can go further.
3 times. A White House mouthpiece later claimed Spicer meant the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando. That's probably an important clarification since the last terrorist attack in Atlanta was Eric Rudolph's bombing of Centennial Olympic Park in 1996. For those who vaguely remember the name, Eric Rudolph was the white guy who was also credited with blowing up a women's health clinic, a lesbian nightclub, and, another women's health clinic. The latter attack killed a police officer and seriously injured a nurse. What you may have missed in this parade of Islamophobia, and well, if we're being incredibly generous, mistakes, was a trio of attacks that were stopped by law enforcement before anyone was hurt. Now, given the concern America has, where might these perpetrators have come from? Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, Yemen? Were they radicalized by Al-Qaeda, ISIS? Nope, they're white Americans from the South. Mark Barnett, 48, from Ocala, Florida, allegedly planned on planting a bunch of bombs in Target retail stores in order to trigger a drop in their stock prices. This would, presumably, enable him to swoop in, buy up a bunch of stock, and wait for the retail giant to recover. Barnett is a registered sex offender, has previously been convicted of several felonies, including, quote, kidnapping, sexual battery with a weapon or force, and grand theft, end quote. There is no indication of his religious affiliation in any reports I've seen. I suspect that it's because he's not a Muslim. From Florida, we'll head over to South Carolina, where Benjamin McDowell, a convicted felon, tried to buy a gun from an undercover agent. Given that he was getting a Glock 40 plus ammo for a little over $100, he should have been suspicious. McDowell told the agent he planned on attacking a synagogue in the, quote, spirit of Dylan Roof, end quote. For those unfamiliar with Roof, he's the white supremacist that was convicted of shooting up a black church and killing 9 people in hopes of igniting a race war. We'll include links to a Guardian article that includes a variety of quotes from McDowell that explain his, quote, plans, end quote, such as they were. For fuck's sake, his mission got put on hold once before because his mother stopped letting him use her cell phone, and he had to borrow money from his grandfather for the firearm. His religious affiliation is sort of mentioned because he uses, badly, language associated with Christian identity white power groups. Then there's William Christopher Gibbs of Georgia, a 27-year-old member of the Church of Creativity, a white supremacy sect that claims, quote, race is our religion, end quote. He was hospitalized a few weeks ago after he feared exposure to ricin. How was he exposed to a lethal toxin that can kill an adult human? Well, some reports indicate he appears to have made it, although the FBI has not confirmed that, and Gibbs is currently under investigation. Some reports also indicate that Gibbs may be suffering from schizophrenia, but obviously for privacy reasons does not indicate if he's being treated. We hope that this incident does lead to adequate treatment and doesn't further stigmatize those dealing with mental illness. However, that consideration aside, these three would-be terrorists, and make no mistake, that's what they are, aren't getting mentions during rallies promoting an idiot-in-chief who claims to be concerned about national security. Their names aren't tumbling out of the gaping maws of either Conway or Spicer whenever they need a scapegoat, some sort of justification for the next ridiculous executive decree, because they don't fit their narrative. They aren't foreign-born immigrants sent here by radical Islam undercover to destroy our American way of life. They're homegrown radical Christians in plain sight who think they're promoting the American way of life. And they think they're the true Americans because they have the right skin color, belong to the right religion, and because the orange buffoon in the Oval Office, who is officially endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan, has tacitly told them they are. Every lie Trump spewed about foreigners taking jobs, raping women, and voting illegally fueled their hate, gave them a target for their rage, told them it wasn't their fault they lived small, shitty lives, that they were two-bit thugs just taking up space. Yes, I said thugs. I know that word has become code for black nowadays, but its proper meaning is, quote, noun, a violent person, especially a criminal, end quote. And these guys fit that bill. Two of the three overtly planned attacks meant to wound or kill people, and the third was fucking around with ricin. What's the likely expectation for that activity? And let's add Roof to the mix. He was convicted of killing 9 people in a church. Way back in episode 7 or so, I mentioned Kurtzman and Schanzer's law enforcement assessment of violent extremists. In case you forgot, it suggests that law enforcement has more to fear from right-wing white nationalists than it does Muslims. So instead of targeting refugees escaping war-torn countries and claiming they're bringing terrorism to the U.S., perhaps we should be paying closer attention to the terrorists that are already here.